Hey, I'm Erin Quill and this is my diverse story. So you're looking at me now and you're thinking, what are you? And I get that question probably every time I leave the house. So here we're gonna just break it down for you, okay? I'm Chinese, Irish, and Welsh. I'm a dual citizen of the United States and Australia. And so now you're very confused and you're wondering how in the world could that happen? And here it's very, very simple. My mother is from Australia. She is of Chinese descent, but her mother was actually Eurasian. So my grandmother was Chinese and Welsh, and then she married a man who was 100% Chinese in Australia. Australia has Asian people. And then eventually, my mother was a dancer. She was a very advanced ballet dancer, and she came over to study with Martha Graham, and she met my father, who was an Irish-American labor attorney. And they got married, and they had 3 children. So that's the first segment of my diverse story. When I was growing up, I grew up in a very Caucasian neighborhood. It was largely Irish and Italian. Being that I was Irish, I never quite understood why people would sort of discount the fact that I was also Irish because I knew all the songs. I went to Kaylee's, I went to all sorts of different things because both my parents were very confident in their heritages. So I never actually had to pick one over the other. And both my parents were very proud of each heritage. So they never competed with each other to say, well, mine is better than yours. And if my father my father was a great believer in history, and so he would give me a book about Irish history, and then the next day he would walk in and give me a book about Chinese history. And he would say, you know, you're nothing if you don't know your own history. So that was a really important lesson because I feel like sometimes Asian Americans tend to be a little shy, and Asian Americans have a great, fantastic, and rich heritage. This country would not have been built without Asian Americans or without Irish Americans, honestly. And you know, the railroad I'm sort of like the railroad because I was built by Chinese and Irish people all across the country. And I feel a little bit that way. And I carry on my track, I carry the load of all my heritages, and I also carry many of the benefits of that. You know, I have to rely on both sides of my heritages to do what I do as a performer. And I think I'm outspoken, so I tend to think that that comes from the Irish side because my father was an attorney and he was an Irish attorney and he was known to like pound on the table and get it done. His cousin was Mike Quill, the labor leader, the transit labor leader. And so my Irish family has always been fighting for equality and equal pay and rights for people in general. And on my Chinese side, her family was very different. They were mainly artists and business people. So in my Chinese family, it was not unusual. Like my mother was a dancer, and I have a cousin, William Yang, that's a famous photographer, and my grandmother was a concert pianist. So everything was encouraged. And I know that that is unusual for a Hapa experience because I've talked to a lot of other Hapa friends, and this is what I'll say. As someone of mixed race, whatever race you happen to be mixed from, you have the opportunity to create your own story from your own background. There's no one that can tell you have to do one or the other. You can take all the best parts of everything you are and put it forward, and that is what makes you unique, and that is what makes you beautiful. I'm Erin Quill, and that's my diverse story.